Author opinion of Dennis Keen at the history, geography and architecture, culture and life manners of Kazakhs in the program Discovering Kazakhstan.
Salam, Привет, and hello. I'm Dennis Keen, and today on Discovering Kazakhstan, we will be exploring the national traditions of avian husbandry. Kazakhs have been keeping birds of prey for hundreds of years for hunting, and more recently have taken up the tradition of pigeon fancying. On today's program, we'll be learning about our feathered friends and those who have devoted their lives to working with them. Our first stop is a bird sanctuary in the foothills of Almaty's Alatau Mountains, where raptors like saker falcons and golden eagles that are traditionally used by Kazakhs for falconry are bred or rehabilitated. The Raptor Center Falconry has become famous for its conservation efforts and for the falconry demonstrations it puts on in the summer. Falconry is the practice of using trained birds of prey to hunt wild game, and a variety of birds are used, not just falcons. Here, the king of birds is the burkut. The bird that has made Kazakhs famous around the world is the golden eagle, or in Kazakh, burkut. Burkutchi, or eagle hunters, capture these birds from the wild, train them, and use them to hunt such wild prey as rabbits and Cossack foxes. These birds are traditionally taken from their nests that are located high on perilously steep cliffs. Quite a daring maneuver, but here at the sanctuary, it is the only place in the country where they are bred in captivity. If you think the 6-foot wingspan of the golden eagle is incredible, then you'll be stunned by the size of the bearded vulture that live in Kazakhstan's high mountain peaks. Here, you can get up close and personal. A significant part of the knowledge that would be needed for traditional Kazakh falconry revolved around the making of equipment. After all, hunters needed certain tools in order to handle these wild birds of prey. The main material that they would use for this is leather. So for example, they would make these leather jesses that go around the feet of the birds as a kind of leash. They would use leather to make gloves so that they could handle them safely. And they would use it to make what's called the falconry hood that would go over the falcon or eagle's eyes to keep it calm while out on the hunt. On traditional Kazakh hoods, you'll see these little flags on the top. These serve a very specific purpose, so that when they have an eagle on one hand, maybe the reins of a horse in the other, they can put this in their teeth. A traditional burkutchi might also be a wood carver, because he would use his skills to carve a perch for his eagle. But nowadays, they don't just use these old technologies, but new materials as well. So this gyrfalcon here, for example, is sitting on a modern perch that's made with synthetic grass that will be more comfortable for his talons. Falconry is a phenomenon that Kazakhstan has become famous for, but there's one other form of local aviculture that is just as fascinating: pigeon fancying. I first found out about this strange subculture when I was strolling the streets of Almaty and I came across a flock of pigeons sitting in the middle of the street. But I saw that they were not your usual city pigeons. They had strange colors and funny-looking feathers. And I watched as they all flew to the roof of one house in the neighborhood. Turns out that this was the home to a golubyatnik, or a pigeon fancier. Over time, I got to know these kind of bird lovers, and they've now invited us to a special pigeon show where we can learn more about this one-of-a-kind hobby. On a highway outside of Almaty, a banquet hall that is usually used for elaborate Kazakh weddings, today is full of strange and beautiful birds. The Semirechye Pigeon Club is putting on its annual pigeon show. But these are not your average park pigeons. These are purebred birds that are selectively bred to have very unusual physical characteristics. Judges will come around to these cages and using these forms, fill out just how perfectly kept these birds are to specific criteria for each breed. And in the end, a winner will be awarded. Some boys grow up playing football and dreaming of World Cup glory. But the pigeon fanciers here have always loved their birds. And for them, the greatest honor would be to win a trophy for Best in Show. It turns out that I'm not the only foreigner here because some of these birds have come all the way from Europe. This breed is called the Warsaw butterfly and it was brought a year ago from Poland. One breeder at the show has brought these unusual breeds from Arabia. It's an Arab breed that is very rarely seen here in Almaty. And we can see it's got this unusual appearance with this large wattle on its face and on its eyes. But the most unusual thing is that it is wearing jewelry. He said that the Arabs say it's called dressing up your bird. And they do it just to make it look even more beautiful. Some of the pigeons here really look big enough to eat. This breed, for example, really just looks like a small pigeon. But they say that very few people here actually eat pigeon as they do in some parts of the world. It may be a myth, but some say that they tried to develop a pigeon meat industry in the Soviet Union, but it didn't catch on because according to people in this part of the world, the pigeon is a bird of God. While all this hustle and bustle goes on inside at the pigeon competition, outside there's a pigeon market where they're selling birds. So we can go check out even more special breeds. If you look at the pigeons at this kind of festival, you see that they are not your average city flyers. Look at this guy, for example. He's got this amazing kind of cartilage growing on his face. These are called wattles, just like the kind of wattle you might see on a chicken or a turkey. These are there to protect the nasal passages of his head. But breeders over hundreds of years has developed this into a kind of physical characteristic that is desired in this breed. This one, for example, is a kind of homing pigeon called a kare. Hey, buddy. One unique breed that we can find here are the so-called fantails, but they call in Russian pavlini, which means peacocks, because of their beautiful peacock-like tail feathers. These birds are who we often see at wedding ceremonies in parks in Almaty, when, just like doves of peace, they are released into the air as a blessing to the bride and groom. Hello.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте. The pigeon show was, of course, fascinating, but to really understand the pigeon fancier's craft, you have to visit them at one of their pigeon lofts. So luckily for us, a local pigeon enthusiast, Mikhail, has invited us into his home. Shall we go?
Пожалуйста.
Thank you. Wow.
Dennis, this is my breed, Uzbek Tumblers, flying birds.
So Mikhail is telling us that these are the pigeons that we've been looking for. They're called boyny golubi, which means crack tumblers. These pigeons are called tumblers because when they fly in the sky, they tumble, doing amazing somersaults and acrobatics in the air. Here, Mikhail is in his element. He is in the aviary, this beautiful kind of giant outdoor cage for the birds. And with his long stick, he can get them to try to go inside so that they can have some rest inside their pigeon loft. Wow. So this is the place where the pigeon fancier really feels at home, inside the pigeon loft. Mikhail has opened up the gates to let these birds come in from the aviary, and now they're making themselves at home on the pigeon perch and in these little cubbies where we can see that they've gathered in pairs. At the show, we saw that some of the pigeons have this very unique feature, that they have these long feathers on their feet. In English, they're called muffs, in Russian, kosmy. And they're usually there for a kind of decorative function. But Mikhail is telling me that on his birds, he actually has to trim them. He wants to make sure that these birds can fly as well as they can, because these are not show birds. These are dancing birds. And just in case one of our falconer friends has a hawk nearby, he wants to be able to make sure that this pigeon can escape in time. So this is where the fun begins. Mikhail is inside the aviary. He's opened up the window and the birds can finally fly free. Once they're out, they've been known to fly around the neighborhood for hours. It is truly their passion. And for the pigeon fanciers themselves, it is such a joy just to sit and watch them fly. There is some kind of meditation in that, and watching just how peaceful and free these birds are as they circle the neighborhood. As we watch the birds fly in circles above our heads, it's surprisingly quiet, it's peaceful. But one thing you do hear is their wings beating together. That's why they call these crack tumblers, because these are a special breed of pigeons that their wings crack together and make this unique sound. Release the birds and watch them fly up. They're flying what they call stolbom. It means in a column. This is what is really valued in these birds, is how they fly. They can fly 20 meters up in one column, and as they go, it says that they row their feet just like this. Those specific movements, how they dance and play, is what these pigeon fanciers really value in their bird. Falconers' falcons and fanciers' pigeons may be natural enemies, predators and prey. But in Kazakhstan, their owners are united by their love for these beautiful creatures and their passion for keeping traditions alive. Thank you for joining us today on Discovering Kazakhstan. Savo, Paka, and goodbye.